Wow, I don't know why these questions are difficult.
I never said it was going to be easy.
I mean, you
Uh,
didn't, but wow, it's just crazy how hard this is. Mainly because I can't think of people. Do other people struggle like this?
This is a podcast called Walk, Talk, Listen. An attempt to connect people and make this world a bit better by sharing opinions and experiences based on the belief that everyone's perspective is true, albeit partial. My name is Maurice Blom, and I would like to welcome you to yet another episode of Walk, Talk, Listen. Good day, everybody. This is another episode of the podcast Walk, Talk, Listen. And as always, I'm delighted with today's guest who will introduce herself. Amina, please go ahead.
Hi, my name's Amina Scott, and I'm a bass player, composer, arranger, educator, and I'm originally from Oakland, California, but now I'm currently based in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Wow. And I'm so
Yeah.
delighted to have you here. I mean, you just came out with with a new album. So I would like to talk about that. Um, my listeners know that I'm biased towards bass players because I'm a wannabe drummer. So I always like to talk with the bass players. Um, you know. Um,
Yeah.
and actually, I saw you a couple of months ago already at the Blue Note where you played with Dee Dee Bridgewater
Oh,
and
yeah, at Birdland.
Birdland. It
Yeah.
was a Birdland, yes, and it was with Shirazet Tannen, who
Uh-huh.
also was a guest on this podcast. And
Oh, nice.
yeah, there was an awesome evening with Carmen
Staff.
on
Uh-huh.
keyboards. Wow, yeah, we enjoyed it a lot. So thank you for
Oh,
that
well, thank you for coming
as
out.
well.
That was a fun show.
It was. It definitely was. Um, so Amina, what I always do with my guests is bring them back to where they were born and their childhood. My listeners are really interested in, okay, how did that maybe influence where you are now? So can
Uh-huh.
you share a bit about that? You said you come from Oakland. Were you born there as well?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Oakland, California. So, it was a cool place to grow up. I mean, I was young, so I don't remember much, but
Hmm.
what I do remember is it's a pretty diverse part of the country. Um and there were people of all different like cultures and different backgrounds, different like sex orientations,
Hmm.
and it's a very like revolutionary place. It's got like a lot of history when it comes to like revolutionaries, like the
Yeah,
Black
yeah.
Panther Party and different movements of like the 1960s. So it's a very freeing place to grow up in, and it's also just very beautiful. Like, the landscape and everything is, like, some of my favorite in the entire country.
Mm.
Like, with all the redwood trees and, having the ocean, like, right there, it's really nice. Um, and yeah, the air quality is amazing. I was just thinking
Yeah,
about that the other day. So yeah, it was an awesome place to grow up in, just
yeah.
like, just as a human being. It was great.
And until what age were you there?
From the time that I was born until I turned 17 or 18.
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
And when did you start playing an instrument?
I started when I was 5 years
Oh.
old, and my grandmother had a piano. Well, she still has it, but she has a piano in like one of the rooms in her house.
Hmm.
And so she started me on the piano around that time, 4 or 5 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when did the bass come in the picture then?
The bass came in the picture around the time that I was 12, when I was, like, in middle school.
Hmm.
Um, I wanted to play music, and I knew that, and I had done other stuff in between, 5 and, like, 12.
Yeah.
So I was playing, like, flute, and I was still playing piano. But I really wanted to, like, those weren't really, like, things that I just naturally gravitated towards
Hmm.
and just naturally kept up. But the but when I picked up bass, it kind of was very, like, natural, like, I just wanted to keep practicing, and, um, I thought it was really fun. So that was, like, the thing that I guess stuck with me around that time,
Mm.
you know?
And was it straight away because you play, well, you play both, um,
Yeah,
stand up and
electric bass, yeah.
electric bass. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Did that start also? You start playing both, or
No, no, absolutely not. I started on electric bass.
oh, you did.
Yeah, so when I was 12, I picked up electric bass, and then I slowly started to pick up upright in high school. But I didn't really get serious about upright until I moved out to New Orleans.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why did you make that switch?
I mean, I never really switched. I still had always played both,
Hmm.
but I mean, this city is so interesting. Like, people see you doing something once sometimes,
Hmm.
and they're like, "Well, that's what she does. That's what he does. That's what they do." So,
Uh-huh.
and you do that enough times, and so then people just like are like, "You play upright." And so even to this day, like, there's people who have not heard me play electric bass because just most of my gigs down here weren't really on that. And like, if people knew, like those who know,
Hmm.
so I never really switched. It's more so that, like, the things that I was getting called to do were more so on upright, and
Okay.
so I just wasn't, like, as practiced on electric bass for a while because of that.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, but
Well,
it's
yeah.
very common down here for people to do, like, kind of everything.
Hmm.
So, yeah, that's just the New Orleans way, I guess, I don't know.
So why did you go there? How did you end up in New Orleans? Why didn't you stay in Oakland?
So I left to go to college,
Hmm.
and Oakland's a great city, and I think it's bigger than New Orleans. I'm not quite sure. It's a little bit bigger. So it's like a mid. I'm just looking up the statistics, so I'm not lying. Yeah, it's like 100. So it's got like 100,000 more people. So it's
Okay.
like, so I left because, obviously not because it's a small city, but it's definitely not a big city. Like New Orleans to some people, like it's all relative. So like
Hmm.
for people in the South, there's not a lot of big cities in some of these southern states. New
Hmm.
Orleans for Louisiana is like the big city. It's like the New York City of Louisiana.
Okay.
Um, and so it's not because of that. It's basically what I'm trying to say. But I left because when it comes to music, um, well, one, New Orleans culture, New Orleans like economy, a
Mm.
lot of it's built on two things, I think. One of them is the service industry, and the other one is considered like tourism. And tourism, actually, both of those could be like music, shows, events, things like that, all kind of fall under that umbrella. So, like the arts, but like it's not, I mean, this is a whole other conversation. That's not the question, but it's not like as directly funded all the time.
Mhm.
But because of that, I think there's so much work here. Um, Now that a lot of these gigs I don't necessarily like personally want to do, but the fact that there's so much work for people that exists within playing music is kind of crazy. And I don't know any city that's like that, where I could
Mm.
just go somewhere and, I'll run into something, you know.
Even more so than New York?
I mean, but New York, everything is so far. I'm talking I could drive 10 minutes from my house.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
could
yeah, yeah.
walk and just I could go out by myself and know that I'm gonna see a friend at some point,
Mm-hmm.
playing or doing something. So like
Sure.
even though it seems like a big city, it's kind of small in that sense. But
Mm-hmm.
Oakland to me is not like that. There's not that many places to play the music that I want to play.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of there's a lot of places to hang, but it's just very different. Like I love it. I love the city, but the way that everything's built there is different. It's a lot harder, in my opinion, to be like a working musician. And the opportunities aren't necessarily the same.
Mm.
Like I would have to go to LA or, maybe Seattle. Well, maybe Seattle, but I don't know about Seattle either. So like I kind of had no choice. And even though I really love the Bay and I love like when I go home, I feel amazing. My body feels great. It's I'm reminded like why I made the decision to leave.
Mm.
Um, but I always love coming back. But sometimes it's just hard when like this is my job. I gotta be in a place where it's easy to do my job. Like even in New York, I could do my job, but then again, that's like 30 minutes to an hour on the train to get to a friend's show, and I could just, drive 10 or 15 minutes to the gig. So also convenience.
Well, it's good to hear. So I haven't been there, so it sounds like I should go there too.
Yeah, are you in New
Because I
York,
like,
right?
yeah, New Jersey, but New York
Oh,
is
New
where I
Jersey.
go
See,
for the
like I'll
music.
have to go to New Jersey and like that's low key. That's like the thing that's keeping me from like moving to New York is that and it gets cold. Like I can't do the winter. Y'all got that.
Yeah, no, fair enough. My wife would agree with you. So
Yeah.
she starts complaining as soon as it gets colder.
Yeah.
So what did you actually study?
So when I moved to New Orleans, I studied music business.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I have 2 degrees. I have a master's too.
Okay.
And for my master's, that's a jazz studies degree, but my bachelor's is in music business.
Okay. And that's handy because being a musician is not easy. So to have some knowledge about how to run a
Yeah,
business, I guess, comes in handy. So that's yeah.
yeah.
Um, I heard you say you made a comment. The music I would like to play. Therefore you're in a better place in New Orleans. What is that music that you would like to play?
I don't know what I would call it. I think like in the industry it would be called jazz.
Mm.
Sometimes it swings, sometimes it doesn't, but regardless, a lot of it's instrumental music.
Mm.
Um, so I guess it would be that Black music, Black American music. Um, I mean, which is really like everything because I'm influenced by a lot of stuff, but
Mm.
that's what I would call it. I mean, you social music because that's also what music is. I don't know, but I would call it something like that.
Mm.
Yeah.
And when people will listen to your new album, um, is that the music that you would like to play, or is that on the
Man,
path
I
towards?
hate it. I hate it. Just kidding. I love it. No, I mean, a lot of these tunes I've been playing for years,
Hmm.
honestly. I mean, the album was recorded like the beginnings of it recorded like a couple years ago. So it's been a process, quite the process getting it out. But I think so. I mean, now, but also since releasing it, my writing has of course changed. The things I'm hearing has changed. A lot of things in my life are just different now,
Hmm.
you know. Well, not a
How
lot,
how
but a
how how?
handful. I mean, just like I guess it's just like kind of what we're all feeling at this time with just everything that's going on. Like the times that we're living in now are a much different time than, even 4 years ago for a lot of us.
Mm.
So like things are just ultimately gonna be different. and I think that as artists, like that's gonna just naturally affect our work. It's not gonna be the same thing that I was producing 4 years ago, even 2 years ago. So just like I guess life is just shifting things and new discoveries, like going back to older stuff. All of that is kind of influencing the newer works that I've been writing.
Mhm.
Um, and so, is this the music that I want to play? Of course it is, because I wrote it, so I like it. I like playing it, and
Mhm.
it means a lot to me, and it's things that I want to share. But it's only like such a small part of what I want to share because there's so much more that has happened since, when did I record this? Like 2022
Mhm.
for most of it. So a lot has just shifted in my existence since then. So yeah, I'm just out here I just want to
Mhm.
keep going and keep sharing, you know?
Where does the wild seed grows?
Is that the question? Well, do you know what the title is? I have to explain the title
Mhm.
before I answer the question. So, and I wish I got the book
So for the
because
listeners, because that's the name of the album that
yeah, here I
Amina
have
made.
it right
Yeah.
here. Oh no, it's blurry. Oh, and I don't want to unblur the
Now we
background.
will make sure that they can find your album, through the
Yeah.
podcast notes. They have to purchase it, although people don't purchase it anymore. They just,
They could
download it from
also stream
Spotify.
it, and then
Yeah.
Bandcamp, I allow, like, 3 listens, which is generous, and then you
Mm,
could purchase it, so, just saying.
yeah. My advice would be just to buy it straight away.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
definitely
just
worth
take
it.
out what I said, just buy it. Go buy it.
Oh, okay. Tell us about the title.
Okay, so the title is, it's based off an Octavia Butler book, and for people who don't know, Octavia Butler was an amazing author and intellectual. And I feel like sometimes she gets like overshadowed by her contemporaries, which is not to diminish her contemporaries, people like, well, I think Toni Morrison was a little bit before her. Um, but
Mm,
like those would be like her contemporaries, like Black authors, and her books kind of fall under the guise of like science fiction,
mhm,
but myself included, and from her own words, not directly of course, but she would not really consider her works to be of the science fiction genre because they were a lot deeper than that.
mm,
And a lot of her novels and a lot of her stories are actually very, very, very relevant to like what's happening in the
mm,
world today. Particularly Parable of the Sower is another one that is like a very powerful and deep and mind-provoking read. But
mm,
so Wild Seed is the name of her novel that the song on my album's based off of, and also the title. And it's about the spirit man. It's about these two energies, actually, I should say
mm,
that. So it's about these two energies, and one of them is kind of visualized as like a male spirit who was a child, but then he suddenly passed away, but his spirit still exists. And a woman who is a shapeshifter, and she's a healer. And so um it's basically about, in short, because I could talk about this for like hours, but it's about the two of them meeting, and they have a really toxic relationship.
mm,
um and the book goes through like the history of uh the birth of this country, of the United States. So it starts in Africa, and that's the thing with Octavia Butler's work. A lot of her protagonists are typically strong women,
Mhm.
strong-willed women, and they're typically Black or African.
Mhm.
In this case, this story takes place in Africa, and it goes through like the transatlantic slave trade and the for this particular universe, the beginning of the 13 colonies, and it's a part of a larger series called the Patternist series. And
Mhm.
so this is like I think this was like the third book that she wrote for it, but it's the first book chronologically through the whole story
Okay.
of the series. So there's about 4 or 5 books. So it's like the third one that came out, but it's the or the fourth one. I'm sorry, it's the fourth one that came out, but um it's the first one of the series.
Mhm.
And I forgot the male spirit, his name's Doro. He could inhabit bodies, and then when he leaves bodies, you die.
Mhm.
So a lot of people are afraid of him because he could do this at will. He's a very powerful spirit. He's also telepathic and he's very strong with his mind. And the female spirit on Wanyu is also equally powerful in what she does. Um, for instance, if you were hurt, had a broken leg, she could touch it, feel where you're hurt, and use her own body to figure out how to heal your broken leg.
Mm.
She's a shapeshifter. And so basically, Doro's hope is that by taking on Wanyu, who's like the last of her kind, the last of her village, like over 300 years ago in Africa, um, he wants to take her because she's so strong and she's also very strong-willed, um, to basically partner her up with certain people in order to create like strong telepathic, powerful people with all these superpowers. Which is where the book starts getting really heavy when you think about all the
Mhm.
stuff that happened to create this country. And so all that aside, when they meet, Doro calls her a wild seed because he'll say things like they'll get into an argument, for example, and he'll be like, "Yeah, I could kill you right now if I could." And she says, "Well, do it." Just like looking dead at him and just being like, "Well, do it then. I wish you would try. Go ahead. I'm right here." And he's so taken aback by the fact that she's just like, "Yeah, I got powers too. Like, you don't scare me."
Mm.
That he considers her a wild seed because of her strong abilities and her strong mind and her, everything about her. And so they go on through a couple books with this
Mhm.
love-hate relationship. But that's the book in short. I don't want to spoil it too much for any listener who wants to read it.
Yeah.
But I will just say it's quite the
Yeah.
novel.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it
And
makes me curious.
I mean,
S-
anyone who reads anything Octavia Butler knows that like the story starts one way and then it's like an onion. You keep
mm.
reading and there's a layer and there's more layers that get peeled back. And then when you get to the end of it, there's no onion left, but you're like left with just like, what did I just read?
Mm.
In like the best possible way. So
And when did you get exposed to her work? How old were you?
Um, honestly, it was a couple. When did I write this song? Like 2021. Like I had
Okay.
known of
Okay.
her. I mean, her works. I mean, my grandmother was an English teacher.
Hmm.
So I grew up knowing about like a lot of Black authors before I even got to high school, like Toni Morrison and Ralph Ellison, and
Hmm.
trying to think who else. Alice Walker. Um, I don't want to say his name because I'm gonna mispronounce it. Um, yeah, I don't want to butcher his name because he was an amazing author, but I'll just say we had the book Things Fall Apart in the house. Like
Mm.
all of these like very important works were
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
in the house. And I couldn't read, I mean, when I was like 5. But it was the exposure to all of
Hmm.
that. So I think I kind of got into Octavia Butler on my own because I had read Kindred, and I just had heard about the book. Then there was a hurricane in New Orleans, and I lost power. And this might be like 2020. So this is like fall 2020. And I was like, I have this book I should probably just read because I can't do anything else. And so I started reading and I was like, oh my God. Because Kindred is another one. And I was like, wow,
Mhm.
this is insane. So that was the first time I read her work. And then um, I went home for the holidays, and this might be the following year. I went home for the holidays, and there was an exhibit on feminism, Black feminism. I want to say part of it was about Angela Davis. I can't remember if this was all at the same time. No, sorry, these are two different exhibits. So just you could just chop this up. But um, the Oakland Museum had
Mhm.
an Afrofuturism exhibit, and it had like stuff about the Black Panther movie. It had stuff about Parliament Funkadelic and George Clinton.
Mm.
It had stuff about W.E.B. Du Bois and how he wrote short Afrofuturistic stories. And at the beginning of the exhibit, you walk through the hallway, and there's a bunch of like handwritten notes that Octavia Butler wrote to herself, drafts that
Mm.
you could look at. I mean, in a glass, so you're not
Yeah,
picking it
yeah.
up, but it had a bunch of her just stuff and like seeing her handwriting and like the things she would write to herself, these little like snippets that to us mean nothing, but to her it was like something very specific. I was like, wow, this woman was incredible. And so then, and just hearing her talk in
Mhm.
interviews, she was definitely a woman that was ahead of her time. And like she saw where the world was going and wrote about it. And luckily her work is here for us to, read and decipher. And I think I mentioned Parable of the Sower earlier. I haven't finished it yet, but that book is what inspired me to start gardening,
Mm.
because the way like I don't want to spoil that novel either, but for those who have read it are gonna know exactly what
Mhm.
I'm talking about, because when you compare where they were in that novel to here and where we're at currently, there's not much different about it.
Mhm.
I mean, there is and there isn't, so it's really interesting how a work of fiction could also be
Yeah.
so like
And,
close to
and be
nonfiction.
influential in making
Yeah.
an album for you. So if we listen, if we listen to the album, are all the songs influenced by that particular book, or is that the start and then it went from there, or is tell a bit?
No. I would say the first song, Wild Seed, is 100% inspired by the book.
Hmm.
A lot of those songs were written in between, I would say 2019
Okay.
and, well, I would say written or arranged because we have a cover on there, but all of those were done between 2019 and 2021.
Mm.
Um, so this is definitely pre-discovering Octavia Butler, but I was so inspired by her work and a couple of other things that
Hmm.
I was getting into at the time that I felt like I needed to use that as like my driving point or
Hmm.
my drive to kind of create this album.
Yeah.
Mind of Minds is also kind of a play on the second book in the Patternist series.
Hmm.
Um, that was a song I wrote a while ago, but when I thought about that story and I thought about the song, which was entitled up until like, I don't know, a couple months ago, I was like, wow, this kind of does fit the vibe of this book too.
Mm.
So sometimes that happens where
Yeah.
you backtrack and um, but yeah. So some of it yes, but it's some of it yes, some of it no.
Hmm.
You know, but as a whole, and what the project means to me, yes.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
What are your superpowers?
Um, well, I think sometimes I give really good advice. I don't know. Sometimes I think I give really good advice, and I don't know, I think I'm a good storyteller. I think I
Mm,
could, I think storytelling is one of my superpowers.
mhm. Cool. Yeah, and well, I mean, definitely, I like the songs on the album, and they
Oh,
definitely tell great stories.
thank you.
Yeah, um,
I mean,
I enjoyed that
that's
a
what we're
lot.
trying to do. Yeah, thank you.
Understood. Um, yeah. Amina, the reason that I started this podcast, um, right, yeah, in the beginning of when COVID happened, had to do is that since 2012, I did 100-mile walk every year to raise awareness, to end hunger, um, poverty, and injustice, and also funds for my organization that I work for. And
Mhm,
then, in that week that I try to walk that 100-mile, I would be accompanied by people for a mile or 2 miles, sometimes 10.
mhm,
Uh, the more uh, daring folks, even 20 plus, with me. But that could not uh, happen during COVID. So I thought, okay, can I then maybe virtually walk? Um, still, yeah, have conversations with people, because that is what happened when I was walking. We talked a lot about different things, about life, what drives you, spirituality. Anyway, my question that I have for you, and I've asked to many of my guests, is if you would be asked to walk 100 miles for a cause, um, for which cause would you walk and why?
hmm. Which cause would I walk for and why? Well, there's so many. So I'm inclined to say all of them. But, um, and with everything going on in the world right now, there's so many. So I don't want people, one thing I'll say is that for the cause that I'm going to decide, and I'm talking so I can stall so I can think, is that just because I'm excluding like so many others doesn't mean that I'm not supportive of them all. So let's just make that really clear right now.
Mm,
And because I can't decide, I'm gonna give you several.
okay.
Not too many though. I'm not gonna give you too many. But one thing I will say is, I guess I would one of the first things that came to my head was uh how forgetting just really like climate sustainability, I think.
Hmm.
Um protect and that includes like protecting like green spaces and everything from the larger aspects of like the polar ice caps are like melting
Hmm.
and it's getting hotter every single year, and every time I go home, I notice that in December it's a little hotter than it was last year. And right now in New Orleans, our hurricane season is the most active it's ever been, even like more active than it was when Katrina hit. So there's, like, reasons for that that are natural, and there's a lot of unnatural things that are happening. Earthquakes in places where there's never earthquakes, like, and that could be a natural thing, a natural phenomenon that you guys had up in, the Northeast. I'm not quite sure, but it could be, it could not be, you know? The fact that it, like, floods here when it rains, like, that's like, and I'm not just for those who are listeners who don't live in the city, what I mean by that is that there's really, like, heavy rains that don't always flood cities, but here, if it's just, like, a really heavy non-hurricane related rain,
Hmm.
it just floods
Hmm.
in some parts of the city. So everything from things like that to community sustainability. So maybe in vacant lots, having community gardens and having people who, you know, would either volunteer or would want to get paid for their time to come out and take care of them. And so in these food deserts, there's
Mm-hmm.
people who have access to fresh produce that's free and seasonal and, therefore affordable. There's a lot of these food deserts where I live. And and it just kind of sucks that that exists. And because of that, people's diets aren't well all the time, which leads to problems with health later on.
Mm-hmm.
Another cause I would say would be, um, with everything that's going on in like Palestine and in Congo, all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really think about the kids.
Mm-hmm.
I think about people who have like more on their plate than others. And I know there's people that are like that in the United States and in North America too, but seeing it all the time, it's like seeing it, and even though I might feel like that sometimes, like I know that it's so much worse over there. And so for that, I don't really know what the cause is directly, but I think definitely like giving people all over the world access to just basic life necessities in
Mm-hmm.
order to survive. Food, um, childcare, like mental health, like not institutions, but like just places to go to like, if you're feeling depressed, you should be able to afford to talk to somebody about that who is like qualified and can help you. Medical needs, like everyone should have access to healthcare. Everyone should have access to education if they
Mm-hmm.
choose. You know, um, like I just think about all that stuff, and there's a lot of places that some that I've traveled to, some that I just see
Mm-hmm.
on the TV that a part of me wishes I could do more, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm doing some research and trying to figure out like what organizations that align with like all of that I could, donate like at least $20 to. I don't have much because our economy here is not very forgiving right now, but I'm trying to do what I can
Mm-hmm.
in ways that make sense for where I'm at financially and like, you know, even if it's writing a song, I'm working on some new stuff. It's like hopefully,
That's
I don't know if
exciting.
yeah, I don't know if it's gonna make a big impact, but there's just so much stuff going on,
Mm-hmm.
in this country and abroad that is just like it's mind-boggling that people just lack empathy and, people using like their culture or religion as a way to weaponize other people for no reason. So anyway, I'm gonna get off
Yeah.
my soapbox now, but those
No,
are
this
those
is
are a
no,
lot
this
of
yeah. Okay, that's great.
those are some of the main things I've been thinking about when it comes to causes that I would walk
Yeah.
for.
We will work together, for a more sustainable world with more
Yes,
equity,
yes.
and um, more well-being. So that's great. And I do think that with your music, you make this world absolutely a better place.
I mean, I hope so.
Music is very important to me, so I always have at least one question about music, and well, we talked a lot about music already, um, but I find this question, the next question, an interesting one because it's the question that most of my guests struggle with most, and then with musicians they should not struggle as much as I think, but then still. So my question to you is, if I ask you to mention a song or a piece of music that best embodies for a big part what you are about, which song would that be and why?
Man, that's a really tall order. You said most guests struggle with this?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought I wasn't gonna be most guests, but I think that's where we're at today. Okay. Hold on. Let me think for a second because I've been thinking about this specific question like all day. And it's the one that most embodies, you said, right?
Yeah, yes.
Mm. Here's the thing. I have listened to so much music growing
Yeah.
up that, and I think, and when I said earlier how like life, like,
Mm-hmm.
you just kind of move and things
Sure.
change and you
Yeah.
go with the ebbs and flows. Like that's kind of where I'm at. So like
Mm-hmm.
things have influenced it, like things are just changing, man. And
No, I get that.
man, I guess you know what? I think what I'm gonna say, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna say a song that I've been checking out recently.
Mm-hmm.
And it's by an artist who I recently discovered, and I love her music very much. And the reason, should I put it in the, I'll say it, but should I put it in the chat just so you can have like the spelling and everything?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, um, the artist's name is Lucia Fumero, and the song I believe is called Ciboulé. So Ciboulé.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm picking this one, it's such a recent thing, but I've never it so as a musician, it's sometimes hard to listen to music because, the musician brain turns on and it's really hard to enjoy things sometimes. But this was one song that came on and I just was obsessed.
Mm.
Like I listened to, like when I listen to it, I'm always reminded why I really like this song. And the album that it's on is amazing too. And I can't find too much about her, but from what I've heard, I think she might be Argentinian,
Mm-hmm.
and she lives in Spain, I believe. And she's a pianist who kind of toes the line between like classical piano and like improvised music, and she also sings and she has an amazing voice. But this song's instrumental. I didn't know she sang until much later because that's how obsessed with this song I
Mm-hmm.
was. And I was like, let me listen to the album like for real in its entirety. And so she also is a vocalist, and she's an amazing vocalist, an amazing songwriter, and I love, like, I just love everything about it. The rhythms, I was really drawn to the bass line, the way the bass sounds, I was really drawn to because that's like one of the first things that you hear. The composition itself is amazing. Um, I know, I think she actually does sing on this song. She does sing on this song. But the other reason why I picked it is because I really love traveling,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that I have learned the most about the world from traveling, whether it's to another state or another country. And so, um, one of the biggest things I learned is that in the US, we're very much in our own little musical bubble, and there's so many amazing artists when you just step foot outside,
Mm.
the US bubble. And I'm very happy that my algorithm is starting to reflect all of that. So that's gonna be my contribution, will be Lucia Fumero.
Great. And we'll
Yeah,
check it out and we'll add it to the Walk Talk Listen playlist
yeah,
on Spotify.
it's good.
Now you have
She's
made me
amazing.
curious, so I will as soon as we are done, I will listen to it.
Yeah, she's amazing.
I mean, what I also hope is that this podcast contributes to connecting people. I connect you to my listeners. I also, you know, like to connect you to my previous guest, and the previous guest has a question for you.
Well, my question would be, how can we all bond together despite our differences?
Empathy.
Hmm.
I think like treating people with respect. You could obviously choose not to, because if I'm being honest, I mean, we all probably know somebody who does not deserve your respect. But I think treating people with empathy, and I was just thinking about this the other day, about my song Praise. If I may talk just a hair about it. So Praise is a song that I wrote about an experience I had in the church, a good experience. If you check out the song, obviously it was like a very good experience. It wasn't bad. But, I have had my thoughts about like the Black church specifically. Um, Musically, it's amazing, but I I grew up going to church every Sunday, and I grew up for myself, I disliked it for various reasons. Like as a kid, and the older I got, I started questioning things, and at that time we had a different pastor, and I wasn't really vibing with how things were going. Um, I should also, for context, I've been in Catholic school basically my whole life up until grad school. Um, but I'm not Catholic. I grew up Baptist. And fast forward several years later, several decades later, I'm in New Orleans, and I play at this church that's around the corner from my house. And we were playing something. It was something super simple, but like the way that the people were acting was just like so beautiful to watch. And I'm bringing this up to answer this question because, on actually yesterday, on Sunday, I was playing at this other church that's totally not my denomination. And everyone was so nice, everyone was so welcoming, everyone was so different. It wasn't one of those churches where everyone looks the same. Everyone was coming from all walks of life, all ages, etc. Um, and that was beautiful. And that's kind of why I said what I said earlier when we were talking about the causes. It's because, you know, I feel like no matter what your religion is, like the goal isn't to, like shove it down people's throat. It's not to use one religion as a weapon against another religion or another group of people. It's really about, we're all just trying to figure out this thing called life, and we're all trying to figure out how to answer the big questions. And I've taken a couple of world religion classes. I've read the Bible front to back. I've read the oh my God, sorry, my brain is not working today. But I'm reading the Upanishads right now. I need to go back and read it again. I've read the Bhagavad Gita front to back twice. I'm not Hindu, I'm not Buddhist, I'm not Taoist, I'm not Jewish, I'm not Muslim. But, you know, I feel like all those religions, when you really kind of get to what the core of it is, are all kind of saying the same thing. And it's like we're all in this together. And if we treat each other with empathy, then that's what's going to like not only make the world a better place, but like bond us together with one another. And there's a guy on YouTube. I'm going to look up his name really quickly because I think he does this exact thing. And it's mind blowing every time his video pops up. Um, his name is Peter Santinello, and I'll type his name in the chat as well. And he travels around the country, and he just talks to people, and people drive him around. And he was just in Hawaii. He was in New Orleans. He's been in like rural Alabama. In parts of the country where someone like me would be afraid to drive through even. And granted, he's like a white man, so it's a little easier. But, the way he treats people, it's just so beautiful to watch because they open up to him, they talk to him about their lives and how they live. And it's just beautiful. And it's like and he's interviewed everyone from people who are at their lowest of lows to people who are like rich and live in like these big fancy houses. And he breaks everybody down to like their core being, their core self in these videos. And it's so beautiful. And so if we all treated people like that, you know, that is what will kind of bring us, to me, closer together.
Great.
Yeah.
And I love that you mention empathy, and people that have been listening to this podcast is that outside of the sustainable development goals that I often talk about, I also try to talk about the inner development goals, something that is necessary as an individual or as a community to work on, and it looks at being, thinking, relating, collaborating, and acting, and empathy is part of that, of course. So like if we're talking about, oh, the world needs to change, the system needs to change. Yes, but those system changes can only take place if we also do the hard work as individuals and as community, as
Yeah.
So I love your answer. And we will check out Peter Santello, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Santinello, yeah.
Okay.
Man, his videos are great and they're relaxing and you learn so much, you know.
And
He's awesome.
and when I was listening to you, it's like, what? I go to church on a Sunday and then there is a chance that I, will find you on the bass somewhere.
No, not really. I was
Oh,
subbing, so
okay.
not really. No. Although I do like playing at church. That's like for any young musician, like the Black church is definitely like the best breeding ground. Some of the best
Yeah.
musicians that I know have grown up playing in church. So highly recommend if you're into that. And if you want to get really good really fast, that'll teach you how to be a musician.
Mm-hmm. I believe that. I have a question again also about music. I did not send this to you in advance, but I think I've asked this to the last couple of musicians that I've spoken with. I want you to choose between a duo, a trio, a quartet, or a quintet.
Mm-hmm.
What would you
Oh, you
pick?
just want me to choose?
Yeah.
Well, my band is quintet, so I will do quintet.
Okay. Then
Yeah.
you are allowed to pick any musician, dead or alive, for your quintet.
Do I have to be in it?
No, but you
Oh, okay.
maybe you want to play with some of the folks that you pick.
Brian Blade on drums. I mean, I'm gonna play bass, so I was just thinking about having two drummers because I also love Gregory Hutchinson.
You can do that.
I love him.
And I also said
that'll be
musicians
so
dead or
interesting.
alive, right? So
I
you
know,
have
but that'll be so interesting. Those are just the two that are in my head that popped in my head the fastest. But we're gonna stick with Brian Blade because I think I'm listening to him more right now. So we're gonna stick with him. Let's see. And then I'm gonna try and find a horn player. Okay, the first pianist that came to mind was Peter Martin, and I think it's because I listened to him today. But I also love his playing. But he's just up there because I listened to him on the way home. So Peter Martin, and they played together, so that also is probably the reason why. I'm just putting together a band that has already existed. Why did I pick quintet? I should have changed it. So Brian Blade, Peter Martin. Let's go with. I'm trying to think of someone who's passed too, because that'll make it really interesting. Casey Benjamin. He's someone I've always wanted to just like talk to, and we've been at the same festivals and never really got a chance to like actually sit. But I think that'll be so. This is so interesting. This is crazy. This band is wild. Like really wild. Actually, all due respect, I'm gonna take Casey off only because I'm gonna switch him because it's quintet and he's definitely like he's like 5 musicians in one person, so that's not fair. He's like that's how big he's got a big presence.
Uh-huh.
Um, let's see. I guess I'm gonna go with like, wow, I don't know why these questions are difficult.
I never said it was going to be easy.
I mean, you
But,
didn't, but wow, it's just crazy how hard this is. Mainly because I can't think of people. Do other people struggle like this?
no.
No? Oh my god. Oh, I feel so bad now. Okay. 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 So I have Brian Blade, I have Peter Martin, I need a horn player. Okay, I'm just gonna say Nicholas Payton. But all these people have played together, so I think I'm just trying to relive this band right now.
Okay, that, you can do that.
You're like, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
And we're
One
gonna have
more, huh?
percussion. Yeah, we're gonna have percussion because I can't think of anybody else. We're gonna have Weedy Brema
Okay.
on djembe.
Okay.
We're gonna have two drummers. There we go. Two drummers.
Nice. I love that. I love a lot of drums. So
Yeah, we're gonna have Weedy on djembe and whatever else he wants to play.
great. Okay.
That's an interesting band. I don't know. That's like first come first, those are
maybe that's an inspiration for you for your next album to say, oh, I need to have that type of band because my
oh,
songs are like that, right?
that'll be such an interesting band.
Hmm.
That's like
Great.
that's a band that's just like, oh, here's people who I would love to play with at some point, either for the first time or again.
Yeah.
And we're just gonna put them all together.
You answered the question of the previous guest. I need you to ask the question for the next guest.
Okay. My question for the next guest is, in the future, this could be 30 years after you're gone, whenever, what kind of world do you hope to see for our children?
Okay, great. Any last message, invitation, or question for the listeners? Outside the fact that they should, download your album.
Oh, yeah. Did you download my album today? That's a great one. Thank you. I don't know. I think my thing for the listeners is a question that I ask myself all the time. Like, what makes you truly happy?
Mm.
Are you doing what makes you truly happy and fulfilled? And if not, what's keeping you from doing that?
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a good one.
Mhm.
I assume that you are doing everything that keeps you happy.
We're working on it every day.
Mm.
It's not like, I don't think the answer to that is like always going to be yes, but it's going to be a yes, but, or a yes and type of thing.
Mm.
So it's a question that keeps me thinking and keeps me hopefully living a life full of intention.
Before I thank you for today, and it was really awesome. Is there a question that I should have asked you, but I didn't?
No, I don't think so. I thought all the questions were pretty good. I don't know. Let me look at the list that you sent me. Let's see. You asked all of them.
No, there are a couple we didn't touch upon, which is fine. It's more than fine.
Yeah,
But
but you asked about the main ones, so
yep.
I'm fulfilled with the questioning.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you so much, and all the best with everything you do. Yeah, and who you are. It was
Thanks.
awesome. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, this was a nice conversation, Maurice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Walk, Talk, Listen. Please check us out on 100mile.org or follow us on Facebook or Instagram.